Radical Phase and Broken French Ways. I am, as always, your host, Christopher Paul Dugdale, MEDMA. We are Duncanville High School in these United States, and today is December 8th, 2020. And on this date in history, 79 years ago yesterday, was the day of the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. Uh, the idea was for them to knock out our Navy and destroy our will to fight, but it does the exact opposite. So, yeah. So, everyone have a great day, and I will see you soon, but not spoon. So, if you remember on the last episode of French Revolution, things were really starting to go crazy. Well, you think that was weird? Just wait till the end of the day today, where, man, I would be terrified to have lived in France at this time. So, the Revolution and Catholic Reform. So, Catholic lands were seized from the Catholic Church. Uh, Paper money was called assignats, and bishops would be elected and paid by the state and reduced to 83. This goes back with the 83 different regions that they created in France. So the French people were really mad about the whole existence of this clergy and nobility that weren't paying taxes, that were living a lot better than the rest of them while they're living in poverty and struggling to get food. Uh, this is going on. So, also to further control the clergy, the civil constitution of the clergy requires priests to take an oath of loyalty to the revolution, and you were much more likely to get this done on a lower level with the churches instead of the church as a whole. So the Constitution of 1791. Okay, this creates a single legislative body, and with a constitutional monarchy. The only thing the constitutional monarchy could really do was delay. This is similar to the veto power of the president in what they were allowing the king to do. The government is now going to be in the hands of the wealthy bourgeoisie instead of the nobility or the kings. And many of the nobility uh, and the king actually tried to flee as a result because they could see the writing on the wall. First, you get in power, and then you punish the people who had been taking advantage of you. Okay, so Louis the 16th is going to flee. Several other supporters are going to flee, and they are dragged back to the capital. And from this point forward, they seem unloyal, and it's going to be just a matter of time before people start to die. Okay, this really hurts the idea of a unified France with people trying to flee. They wanted them to be part of the solution, not necessarily part of the problem. And the problem is, if this is what's happening to you, then you know that you're probably going to be more likely executed than anything else. In kind of a continuation of what was going on during the Enlightenment, there were informal meetings in coffee houses, and they would get together and try and talk about how things could change. And one of these groups was called the Jacobin Club. And many leaders of the radical revolution, and just wait, it's about to get radical, they get together and meet. Okay? So there's people meeting in clubs all throughout France, about 900 united clubs, and this is where all the change is going to be driven from people meeting in coffee houses. So you go down to Starbucks, you get your drink, you sit there for a minute, and you're like, you know what? We should really change things over much, much more and start executing in large numbers. And let's do it publicly with a machine that makes it look really exciting and violent. A lot of blood. And everyone's like, wow, yeah, yeah. Can you pass me another sugar for my coffee? I think I'd like to do this. So sign me up. So Edmund Burke, he's this English conservative who sees what's happening in France and fears that this will spread to Great Britain. And any type of revolution is one that also threatens the leadership of another country as well. And so no one wants to see this spread anywhere else. And so he uses this platform to condemn what France is doing to all of its traditions, from that as a country to just the structure of government that they had. And in his book, The Reflections on the Revolution in France in 1790, he says that the revolution would end in a military dictatorship of France. Now, in response to that, Thomas Paine, who you might remember from such works as Common Sense, writes a book called The Rights of Man, and he said that the French Revolution is the natural thing that's going to happen here and what should happen because the French government didn't protect the rights of the people. And in doing this, this follows the theories of John Locke that says that the people have the right to overthrow the government whenever this type of thing happens. Now, emigres, these are people that fled France. So a lot of your nobility and even the clergy. And in the other countries that they go to, they're going to work against the French Revolution from abroad. And this is eventually going to lead to a war with France, which oddly enough will go surprisingly well for France despite all the reputation and joke that we've made of France over the years. So the radical phase, okay? So why does it become more radical? Well, one, you have major economic problems from inflation and angry workers hit by high prices and an anti-union government. So again, people can't afford bread, they're starving, and the government was really anti-union, taking away the rights of the workers and kind of telling them how the beef was made. There's a saying there, but I can't remember what it is. So, what better way to do this than to record that for all of posterity? So anyway, the royal family angered citizens from fleeing and from the fleeing that they did, and the fact that they had tried to leave France whenever they were seen to be the people that would usher in this new age. Okay, and also the fact that they were supporting the church. Just they're trying to keep in the things that tore apart the country and led to the French Revolution. Okay, the counter revolution that's going to happen are people that are jealous of Paris's power, some of the rights of the clergy, the immigrants from the nobility and the clergy that had fled the country and were still causing problems, and they wanted to punish the members that were still there, and religious peasants. Okay? And then also France is going to declare war in 1792. So, the Austrian Emperor Leopold VII is a brother to Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France at the time. Okay? And so, on the one hand, you now have Austria that's upset because he's trying to protect his sister. Okay? The Prussian king issues the Declaration of Pillnitz, and this promises to restore order in France if other nations helped. Okay? So in response to these perceived threats, the citizens of France get together, the citizen soldier army under the Girondins, to go to Austria and fight. Okay, so Austria becomes the target here. Okay, so in 1792, France declares war on Austria. Okay, now Louis XVI supports this war, even though Austria is just trying to help him because he thinks that France is going to lose this war horribly and that he'll regain power. Spoiler, it doesn't. Okay? Dang it! I should have. I'm sorry. Huh? I wonder what happens next. Okay, so the Brunswick Manifesto. Okay, the Austria and Prussia is going to threaten revolutionaries with violence if anything happens to the royal family. Okay, and Jean-Paul Marat's newspaper, L'Ami du Peuple, demands heads to roll. Let's start decapitating people. Okay, and the sans-culottes are the less healthy patriots of the time. So Georges Danton, a sans-culotte, he creates the Paris Commune to adopt more aggressive measures. And this is going to lead directly to the September massacres. Now, I know when you hear the word September massacre, you think that people are going to die. But rest assured, okay? Don't get scared. They're already dead, okay? Uh, but they died back then in September, so they're not going to die right now. So don't think that someone's going to catch up with you for all the things that you've done, you know, under that tree with those stockings up there, you know. So, uh, Austria, Prussia, Spain, Portugal, Britain, and the Dutch Republic all take up arms against France. Okay. So, the Republic's army, this is a volunteer army of over 1 million people. Okay. 1 million French people, I should probably tell you that. Somehow pushed the foreign armies across the Rhine River and ended up conquering the Austrian Netherlands. Okay? So, in a shocking twist in world events, welcome to confusion. Okay? And I know you're thinking, wow, you're not giving France any type of benefit or support or benefit of the doubt. It's probably because I've been studying history. And by the way, a volunteer army doesn't necessarily have a good leader in it, but they somehow manage to rout the armies of several countries. Probably just weren't as dedicated as the French. Okay, so things now have gotten a little bit crazier. Okay, so the second French Revolution, the mob arrests the king, and a more radical national convention is elected to rule France. Okay, not enough things had been changed, so this is whenever a major change is going to take place. Okay, the September massacres. Okay, the whole thought was that if they don't do something, Austrian and Prussian forces are going to move into France, and France is going to go in and take all these people that they have imprisoned and add them to their armies, and then the invasion is going to happen, and France is going to lose. So they start going through and slaughtering everyone in the prisons. Okay, many of them were pretty innocent of doing anything and weren't any threat to France or anything else, especially, helping a foreign power. Okay, so in the Battle of Valmy, Austria and Prussia was stopped and France was declared a republic. So now they can do what they want to do, which is a little bit scary. Because remember, this is led by a mob. A mob wants instant action and doesn't always think about their actions into posterity. So this is going to lead to the Reign of Terror. Okay? There's a group of Jacobins known as the Mountain. Okay, and they find the king guilty and execute him by the guillotine. So they take him and Marie Antoinette out, and they publicly will execute them in front of everyone. That's kind of what publicly means. Publicly in front of everyone. Okay. The Paris Commune then is going to arrest and execute leaders of the Girondins. Okay. Uh, so Maximilien Robespierre, you see him over to the left hand side there. He comes to power. He's really the most powerful of the Jacobins. and he calls for universal male suffrage. Although people never get a chance to vote under this. And also, he's against capital punishment, although they are executing people left and right. And he's also in favor of abolition of slavery. Okay? So, several different ideals that he has, but the truth is, he's going through and he's executing people, which goes against most of his thoughts and policies. So, thank God everyone is saved by the Committee of Public Safety. Uh, this is going to bring cooler heads. Okay, and you'll see by what they do here. So 12 people, a 12-person committee that ruled France during the Reign of Terror, led by Robespierre. Okay, and they executed over 50,000 people, and this is from all different walks of society, all different walks of life. But one of the largest groups that they start executing are members of the clergy and the nobility. Okay, and by the way, just in case you don't remember, the clergy are members of the church. Now, it's a much different type of role than they play today, but these were a lot of very wealthy people that were kind of out of touch with what was going on with what was going on in the church. So they had these important positions that they had. They made a lot of money. They lived in palaces. They lived a pretty good life. Okay, so basically the police of the Committee of Public Safety is going to arrest people. They're called the Committee of General Security, and well, anyway, this reign of terror where they're just executing people, anyone who seems even close to radical, or anyone who seems to be making money is targeted by this. Okay, so let's look at some of the achievements of the Reign of Terror. We'll start off with the mass conscription. All French citizens had to help with the war effort, and they had an army of over 1 million people. The law of general maximum. This is going to establish maximum prices for key commodities. Okay, with severe punishment. So it would make bread certain prices, meat certain prices, and if you try to charge more than that, then you could be executed in the Reign of Terror. So, sure, you might be able to cause a fake shortage, but if you did, you would find your head separated from your body with a guillotine. The abolition of slavery. Okay, there was a slave revolt in Haiti under Toussaint Louverture. Okay, and well, basically, this is really the first successful slave revolt. They started this in the middle of the French Revolution. There was no country to send an army to reestablish slavery, and you have a republic. You have a republic in the Caribbean, and eventually this revolution in Haiti is going to cause Napoleon to sell the Louisiana Territory to the U.S. So, pretty big deal. In addition, you have a revolutionary calendar because what is the most Christian thing? Apparently, it was the calendar. And I don't understand how it was such a Christian calendar because the months of the year, in many cases, were named after Greek and Roman gods. I mean, August was named after under Augustus Caesar. Okay, and by the way, he was deified through that. You have July with Julius Caesar, and you have October with Octavian, which was the original name of Caesar. And I guess I haven't talked about the gods so much as I talked about the fact that that it's really more Roman based than it is anything Christian based, which I just found confusing. Okay, so let's take out God out of everything. So they changed the calendar They changed the days of the week and the months of the year. Okay, uh, a new calendar is developed, and they named all the seasons after weather conditions and agricultural products instead of anything else. Months were now all 30 days long with 10-day weeks. So instead of you having to work 5 days a week, you're now working 9 days a week with a 1 day weekend. So if that doesn't seem a little bit confusing, I don't know what is. Uh, you also have the cult of the Supreme Being, and this is where they changed Notre Dame from being a Catholic church to a temple of reason, and they have a civic religion, and they take all the saints' names away from the streets, and basically this phase of the Reign of Terror just tries to get rid of any traces of Christianity from the nation. So let's look at some of the achievements of the a few more achievements of the Reign of Terror. I know that most of it sounded bad, but some of the positive things that come out are the standardization of weights and measures. You understand how alone the world is, or the U.S. is, in only using the English standard system instead of the metric system. Okay, it's really a universal system outside of the United States. Uh, France promotes the metric system, so they try and get off of the system from before, and you know, just to kind of put things in perspective, the fact that things were so different from country to country. Napoleon was always seen as a very short man at 5'2", but in English measurements he was actually 5'6". So just because they used different standards of measurements, he was seen as almost like a midget to people in England whenever he was probably taller than the average Englishman at the time. I know that sounds kind of weird. Anyway, there were a lot of military victories for France. They invaded the Netherlands and they created the new Latvian Republic. So that, and they held off Austria and Prussia and Spain and Portugal and several other nations. The Herbertists. Okay, these are radicals who advocated complete equality, and they were considered so radical that they were also sent to the guillotines. Okay. By the way, if you did anything back then that got anyone's attention, you were going to be guillotined in France. So they had no problem taking people out and guillotining them in large numbers. In April of 1794, Danton and his supporters, the Indulgents, are executed. Okay, and so the number of executions really go through the roof whenever you didn't have to really provide any proof of treason. All you had to do was put out an accusation, and this would lead to the execution of someone. Okay, and then in July of the same year, Robespierre and everyone that was involved with the Reign of Terror are arrested and sent out and guillotined as well. So no one was safe from the guillotine in France in the 1790s. You know, whether you were trying to work on everyone's behalf or if you were insane like Robespierre, they would take everyone out and guillotine them publicly. So you got to see everyone's last moments, and the mob mentality supported this because they didn't think any further than what was happening at that moment, even though they might be the person in the guillotine at the next moment. Okay, Thermidor and the Directory. Thermidor was the month of Robespierre's execution on the French calendar. Uh, so, the Jacobin clubs were closed to certain members of society. All men could vote, but they had to do it through wealthy electors. Okay, it was run through 5 directors as an executive body, and that's kind of the structure that was set up under them. The Conspiracy of Equals, these are socialists that were led by Gracchus Bebo, who were executed in September of 1797 after an election that created a royalist majority. again, you're seeing the continuation of all of these different groups that were trying to take over. What really ends most of this is Napoleon Bonaparte. He leads a coup d'état. He's a young general in his 20s, and he leads a coup d'état against Fructidor, and he gets rid of the results of this election, and this kind of closes down this period of the French Revolution. But even after Napoleon's death, there's a lot of chaos, and you still don't have stability in the French government for about another 50 or 60 years. And then even after that, it's overthrown, and it's not until after World War II that you have a quasi stable French government. Okay, so everything just falls apart during this time period. So that leads us to the end of the craziest phases of the French Revolution. So, I don't know if you need to go back and watch this again, but there's nothing but insanity during these phases of the French Revolution, especially whenever they go execution crazy. So, I'll see all of you soon. This is Christopher Paul and Doug Dell, MEDMA, and I will see you on the other side.